Welcome back to Hope is Kindled, the podcast where we look for light in the deepest stories ever told. And sometimes, we follow that light straight onto a day-glo bus, driven by a guy named Ken Kesey, with Jerry Garcia on the organ, Tom Wolfe taking notes in a white suit, and a whole gang of merry pranksters yelling, "Further, yes!" Friends Kesey, today's episode is a bit of a departure, and in the best way. Today we venture down a different kind of rabbit hole, Kesey one painted in neon, lit by blacklight, and echoing with the hum of a further-bound bus. We're diving into the electric Kool-Aid acid test by Tom Wolfe. And I have to say, this one hits close to home. It's trippy, hilarious, philosophical, cautionary, and unforgettable. And fittingly, our next episode will be on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Kesey, also by Ken Kesey, and my favorite book of all time. But first, the acid test. Tom Wolfe, our author and brilliant observer, was a new journalism pioneer, meaning he dove into his stories headfirst, lived among his subjects, and delivered truth in a kaleidoscopic whirlwind of color and style. He wore bespoke white suits and wrote with a flair that was part reporter, part beat poet. The electric Kool-Aid acid test is his account of Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters, a group of idealists and misfits who took to the roads of America in a rainbow-painted school bus named Further, promoting a lifestyle of art, freedom, rebellion, and LSD. The whole book is a tapestry of psychedelic exploration and existential yearning, chronicling the rise and fall of a countercultural movement with the wide-eyed wonder of someone who knows he's witnessing something deeply American and deeply strange. This book is weird. It's wild. It's beautiful, abrasive, confusing, and profoundly important. It's also, for better or worse, the historical record of a moment when America stood on the brink of an identity crisis, when the straight world and the counterculture collided in a technicolor boom. It may seem like a departure from our usual fare, but this is a story of transformation, of seeking, of trying, in the wildest ways, to find meaning Kesey or escape it. And who was Ken Kesey? Ken Kesey was born in 1935 in Colorado, raised in Oregon, and seemed destined to be a part of America's mythos. A wrestler, a writing student at Stanford, a guinea pig for early LSD trials run by the CIA under Project MKUltra, and then an author. In 1962, he wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Kesey, a searing, unforgettable novel about individuality, freedom, and the crushing power of institutions. It's not only my favorite book, it will be the subject of our next episode. But after the success of that novel, Kesey didn't settle into literary fame. He bought an old school bus, painted it every color imaginable, and with a ragtag group of artists, seekers, and total wildcards, he set out across America. That group would be called the Merry Pranksters. Their goal? To turn the world on, not just with LSD, but with possibility, with madness, with laughter, with a new way of seeing, and someone had to record it all. And how about Tom Wolfe? Tom Wolfe, decked in white suits and social Wassensatiere, wasn't exactly a hippie. Born in 1930 in Richmond, Virginia, educated at Yale, and trained as a journalist, Wolfe invented a whole new style of nonfiction, the new journalism. That meant long-form reporting that read like fiction, rich detail, internal monologue, wild syntax, onomatopoeia, fragmented narration, exploding punctuation. Think Hunter S. Thompson meets Hemingway on espresso. Wolfe joined the pranksters, not as one of them, but as an embedded observer chronicling the blur of events with a blend of admiration, bewilderment, and biting insight. His 1968 book entitled The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test is chaotic brilliance. The time capsule, and, like many of the volumes on our shelf, it is also a cautionary tale. Now that we know a little about the writer, Tom Wolfe, and the central figure of this work, Ken Kesey, who are the Merry Pranksters? Who are the mythic travelers who boarded the pranksters' bus? There was Neal Casati, a beat legend, the inspiration for Dean Moriarty in On the Road, and now the maniacally grinning driver. Casati didn't just drive the bus. He was the bus, all motion, speed, gear shifts, ecstatic rants, and endless energy. There was Mountain Girl, Carolyn Adams, who would later marry Jerry Garcia and raise a family on the edge of the psychedelic frontier. There was George Walker, known for his mischievous grin and technical know-how. There was Ken Babs, Kesey's right-hand man, part comic, part philosopher, always in the moment. And of course, there were dozens of others Kesey acrobats, drug peddlers, camera operators, jugglers, thinkers, wanderers, dropouts, each playing their role in a living experiment of total freedom. They weren't trying to build a political movement. They weren't trying to fix society. They were trying to live it differently, truthfully, colorfully. They roared across the country in a rolling art piece, dropping acid in silence and in noise, trying to film their experiment, crashing parties, chanting nonsense. And Kesey, as one story tells, wired an actual organ into a house to host Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead for an impromptu acid-drenched jam session. It was wild. It was joyous. It was, at times, terrifying. It's tempting to romanticize this story. The colors, the freedom, the refusal to conform. But Wolfe never flinches from the shadows. There were casualties, literal and spiritual. Some who couldn't come back from the trip. Some who never found clarity in the chaos. And, while LSD opened minds, it also closed some. The freedom sometimes tipped into frenzy. The community sometimes collapsed into confusion. This book, like all great stories, asks a question. What does it mean to be free? And, when you break all the rules, what's left? Kesey, at his best, was a mystic, a joker, a man willing to burn through the veil of reality and ask us to look again. But even he came to see the cracks. He once said, "Take what you can use and let the rest go by." That's good advice. The Merry Pranksters didn't always know what they were doing, but they meant something. They meant to show that life could be art, that people could change, that there was more to being alive than sitting in traffic, sipping Folgers, and dying quietly. Where's the hope in this one, you ask? In the laughter, in the confusion, in the refusal to give up on wonder. This book reminds us that life doesn't have to look one way. That seeking can be sacred. That dancing through madness might still lead to truth. That art, true, unfiltered, unregulated art Kesey, is one of the last places freedom lives. But it also warns us, without anchors, without honesty, without love, freedom becomes noise. So we ride the bus with them. But we also get off and walk back into the world with clearer eyes. In our next episode, we'll sit with Ken Kesey again, this time in the fluorescent, oppressive halls of a psychiatric ward. And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is more than a novel. It's a cry of rebellion, a howl of hope, a fight for dignity. So until next time, stay weird, stay curious, stay human, and remember to live the journey.